I'm Cheryl Hawkins. Welcome to Solutions, the show that highlights the incredible work that nonprofits do every day to help solve problems in our communities. Many times, art is undervalued in terms of it being something that has the power to change a life. On this edition of Solutions, we focus on Story Tapestries, a nonprofit organization that uses the power of art as a tool to create accessible, open spaces and opportunities to help individuals reach their highest potential and to work with others to create a more inclusive community. So what's the story behind Story Tapestries? Let's take a look.
Story Tapestries really is about the ability to step back and lean in.
Story Tapestries opens a door to a world that we often all forget.
They are a gem in our community.
Arts education has a huge positive impact on children. The skills they learn, they lead directly to higher engagement, higher attendance, higher test scores. And this is central to the mission of Story Tapestries.
It's about leaning back, really listening, and then leaning in and saying, what can I do? What is possible?
Story Tapestries is a way of life.
The power of storytelling, the power of conveying that to individuals, that they're not just listeners, but they themselves have a story to tell.
I will protect my valued city.
We identify self and then relationship and build something together as a unified ensemble that then will hopefully create a message or deliver a message that will inspire other people to do the same.
It is a gift that they bring to so many children, knowing that they are going to touch their hearts, give them courage to grow and to see possibilities.
Joining me in studio is Ariana Ross, the founder and chief executive officer of Story Tapestries. Ariana is a sought-after writer, performer, and educator, and a leader in arts integration and storytelling. Ariana, welcome to Solutions.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you for coming. I'm so excited to talk with you about the work you do with Story Tapestries. So reading on you and talking with you a little bit prior to this show, I've learned that you are an artist, a storyteller, and the founder and CEO of Story Tapestries. So tell us, what is the creation story of Story Tapestries, and what was your personal journey that led you to create the organization?
Absolutely, and I'm gonna have to give you the abridged version because that was years and years and years in the making. So I have actually been a teaching artist and a performer for 24 years. The organization has been around for 12. I say it began when I was a little kid. I loved telling stories. My mother, my grandmother, everybody made up stories. It was just a part of our culture. You would wash your hair, my mom would make up a story. We would be trying something new, we would make up a story. But I remember I hit a wall when I got to high school. Math was really difficult for me. For some reason, I couldn't understand some of the math problems. And my mom is a pianist, and she said, well, just look at it like a piano piece. How do you tackle a piano piece? And to me, that was my first introduction to arts integration without ever being aware that it was arts integration. And then it continued into college. I worked with a professor, Reeves Collins. And Reeves Collins was a phenomenal storyteller and an amazing educator who really kept telling me, just look at it from a different angle. Find a different approach. I have to admit, I adore the fact that the name of the show is Solutions, because we always talk about how Story Tapestry is just one part of the solution. But that idea that it's one part of the solution really came from every teacher, every individual I worked with sharing with me, well, here's another way you can do it. Here's another approach. When I graduated from college, I had the opportunity to travel to India. I worked with a man that everybody called him Dada, which means like uncle or grandfather. But his name was Bansi Kaul. He ran an organization called Rang Vidushak, which in English means the theater of laughter. All of his shows, the idea behind them is that he used laughter, or through the laughter and tears of our tales, the lessons of life are imparted. Every single actor, performer, individual connected to the theater company knew every single aspect. You knew how to sew a costume, you knew how to play a musical instrument, you knew how to build a set, you knew how to translate things. And it was all performed in Hindi, Urdu, and at that time I spoke Hindi and Urdu. I understand a little bit, but don't speak it anymore. But I really watched how he brought everyone together and really truly elevated the voices of the community and really truly honored everyone's story. And when I came back to the United States, one of the first things I noticed both as a storyteller, a performer, and educator was there were some people that could afford to have me come to their school, to have me come to their library, their community center, and there were many, many, many others that couldn't afford it. And so I started raising money. I was like, well, let me just figure out how to do this. I'll just raise money. I'll write a grant. I'll ask people. I wasn't a not-for-profit. We were not a not-for-profit. I was just raising money because I didn't like that people couldn't afford the services. So if someone said I had $1,000, but the program cost $3,000, I would just find someone who would pay for the $3,000. Wow. And it wasn't until a group of community members came to me and they said, why isn't this a not-for-profit? Oh, no. My reaction immediately was, oh, please don't. Oh, man, a board, that's a lot of work. I don't want to do that. I just want to do it on my own. And then I quickly realized I was completely wrong. In that I was already doing it by putting a formal structure around it. We started off with a budget of $10,000, and now we're a little over $1 million. I'm not going to lie to you, awesome. I never imagined that.
That is awesome. I'm glad you didn't imagine it and you just let it happen because it's a wonderful thing, a wonderful place you're in. Now, you said that your organization is an arts service organization versus an arts education organization. What's the difference?
Absolutely. So we're an arts service organization, meaning that we use the arts as a tool, both in educational settings and in other settings, right? We work with kids as little as 2 and adults as old as 104. So sometimes the arts are a teaching tool. Sometimes the arts are a tool to, for example, bring individuals together to have a conversation about a difficult topic through our program Amplify Us. Sometimes the arts are a workforce development tool. Sometimes the arts are a mental health tool. We work with kids and adults that are dealing with serious mental health crises, and the arts are a tool that we use to support them.
I was going to ask you that. You kind of touched on it. Exactly what is the power of storytelling? How do you use it? And who are you serving? You shared that it's young people and adults, but yeah. What is that power?
That could be like an entire 30-minute segment. So I would say is, I think the power comes from our definition of storytelling, right? So we believe every single art form tells a story. So Story Tapestries believes that if you weave the art forms together with sort of life, curriculum, education, every aspect of life, and you weave them together, all the art forms, that becomes that strong tapestry that holds up community, that supports community. And what makes storytelling, whether it be through visual art, through beatboxing, through poetry, powerful, is that it is woven with all these other pieces.
So I was going to ask you, how'd you come up with the name, but that kind of tells you how you came up with it. But that word tapestry, it could have been quilt or whatever, but you chose tapestry.
I did. So initially, it's funny, if you go back and you look in, there's on the website, on internet, you can look at something called the Wayback Machine. And our original logo actually looked like a quilt. But we realized that a quilt oftentimes has a very cultural perception, right? It's squares or shapes sewn together. And what we're saying is not a quilt. What we're saying is that you literally need to weave them together. And that is the quintessential definition of what a tapestry is. So Story Tapestries is the idea that every story is a woven integral part of society, is important to society. Every individual is important.
So what are the important parts of telling a story?
Ooh. The most important part is the ability to listen. To lean in or lean back as someone is sharing your story, to not interrupt, to really hear the story, to honor the story. And also to remember that the person in front of you may not actually, you may think that they should understand your story because they're your teacher, they're your boss, but to give them enough details, enough information that they can really feel the power of your story. They can visualize it, they can see it. Reggie Cabico uses these image words and these image cards. He's one of our master teaching artists and poets. And those image words really hold weight. And so I think one of the most important part in a story is how much weight do you give the words?
Very nice. So tell me about some of the programs that you offer at Story Tapestries.
There are, every day, I feel like a new program gets added because the programs come from the community, and that's critically important. So the collaborative planning process is critical. We have some key programs that we utilize, but if a community member comes to us and says, all right, I have this issue, I have this problem, I need a solution. Can you work with me to develop a solution using the arts as a tool? So one of our key programs is Write Your Stories, WISE, which is really about giving youth and adults the ability to write their own path, to create their own path. The most most studied part of that is our early childhood aspect. So we work with early childhood centers, pre-K classrooms, kindergarten and first grade, and we use the arts as a tool for mental health, social emotional development, and learning how to read and write. In addition, we have our digital equity program, and that is really majority of that is for 16-year-olds and up. And it's really about giving them the digital branding skills that they need to be successful adults, to make a difference. Recently, we worked with the Montgomery County Coalition for the Homeless with our digital equity program. Another key program are our STEAM programs, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, weaving those together. We work with Game Genius, Peter Williamson, and bring games and play into the classroom along with robotic. There's just so many options.
So you take your programs to the people, it sounds like, or do they come to you?
Both. So sometimes it's, hey, there's this crisis happening, there's this situation occurring, can you go in and can you partner with? One other program I didn't mention is our Amplify Us program, which is about amplifying the voices of those who feel as though they do not have a voice. There we bring a racial equity facilitator together with a teaching artist or an equity facilitator together. And that oftentimes a community will come to us and say, hey, can you help us with this? How do you approach this? Other times a teacher will come, a parent will come. Hey, can you? It's very rare that we just magnanimously go like, we're going to go in and fix it. That's not appropriate.
Right. So how do you evaluate the impact you're having on the people you serve?
That is an awesome question. We work in partnership with Sharp Insight. They are a local evaluation firm. They're amazing. They have given us, and we have spent years with them, developing surveys, observation tools, and discussion groups, like focus groups where we meet with the stakeholders and we say, what worked, what didn't work? And then we gather all that data over the year and then we give it to them. And they do an analysis and they help us to produce a report. Every year we try to up our game in evaluation and really try to do a better job. So next year and the year after we might add more tools, more surveys. We always recognize that you can't rest on your laurels and that you really need to be consistently thinking about how you can do a better job evaluating your programs.
That's awesome. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, I'll be joined by Reggie Cabico, a poet who works with Story Tapestries. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
is a problem. Sometimes bullying is trash talking, and it affects the life of some young people. We can fix this problem by learning proper communication and understanding, and letting adults like teachers and parents know what's happening. Trash talking and bullying is hurtful and wrong.
Joining me now is Reggie Kabiko. Reggie is a poet who shares his gifts and talents in arts programs at Story Tapestries. Reggie, thanks for being here.
Hey Cheryl, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
I'm excited to have you. So you're a poet. Tell me your story. How did you become, what led you to become a poet?
I never wanted to be a poet. I wanted to be in musicals, and I found out that I got tired of playing Chino from West Side Story, because that's all they would give me. And they would ask if I could do karate or jiu-jitsu skills. And I'm like, no, no, no. So here's the thing. When I graduated from theater, I went to NYU. I discovered poetry because it was the 90s and it was the beginning of multicultural literature. And I started to write poems, and I was performing them all over New York. And I wanted to talk about the Filipino experience. I wanted to talk about myself being a queer poet as well. And I feel that that really opened me up into writing poetry. So the aspect of performing my poetry is sort of your own solo show. And you don't have to be a certain height, you don't have to have a certain look to perform your poem. You can just do it and be you. And I think that that's what attracted me to poetry, and I was in control of what I can do. So it's like this: you can't stop me from performing. I'm going to write my poem and I'm going to perform it. And I think it's the vehicle for why I teach poetry, because I feel that everyone has a poem. Everyone's got their own story. And what's great with Story Tapestries is that I get the opportunity to work with pre-Ks all the way to participants with memory loss. So it has been a fabulous journey. So I didn't think I'd be a poet, and I didn't think I would be a master teaching artist as well. So you never know what life throws at you, but you just got to follow your passion, yes, and the universe, yes, speaks to you.
And be open to receive it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so how long have you been with Story Tapestries?
I would say for almost a decade. Yeah.
Great. And so what are some of the programs you manage there?
Amplify Us is a program that works within the community to bring communities closer together. We open up dialogue on identity, race, different issues that happen in the community, police brutality. And we want people to have a voice and to connect and to know each other. And through art making, through visual art, through poetry, through storytelling, we really try to create that safe space where people of all different backgrounds can come together and open the door to feeling, mm-hmm, and dive into the ocean of their imagination, so that way they can be themselves in a brave space, in a nurturing space.
Mm-hmm. So what age group are you working with in the Amplify Us?
Well, we work with all ages, primarily adults, and sometimes intergenerational, mm-hmm, which I think is really, really important. Mm-hmm. Just having those voices connect. Mm-hmm. So all ages, and we like having families together.
Oh, okay. Yeah. How does that work?
Well, I've seen parents and their children, and they write poems together, or they do visual artwork together, and then they share it with other families and other groups. And then sometimes we end with an open mic. And it's a lot of fun, and I say, snap it up, you know. And I think sometimes, you know, the best medicine is just applause, yeah, and just to be heard. Mm-hmm. And to be seen. And I want to say, as a child of Filipino immigrants, growing up in Prince George's County, where we were the only Filipino folks, mm-hmm, to be heard is huge. And with a lot of the students who I meet, I tell them, you know what, you might be scared to read your poem, but if you can read your poem now in front of a group, there's nothing that you can't do later. And if you don't tell your story now, somebody else will silence you or tell the story for you.
Yes.
So to me, that's, and it's just a gift working with Story Tapestries, because I didn't think that I'd be able to teach pre-K. You know, I could do teens, I could do adults, and maybe I could do 5th grade would be the lowest. And then Ariana Ross said, just do what you do. I don't know what to perform for these kids. It's like, perform the poetry that you want them to write. And I'm like, oh my gosh, let me do that.
I love it. I know you've had many, many experiences that touch your heart or you remember, but can you share one experience that made you realize that what you're doing with at Story Tapestries is worth it?
Well, one story comes to mind. It was a boy who just didn't speak, a 3rd grade boy, just came into the country, didn't speak any English for the whole year. And I do a little exercise. When I opened the door, out came a rabbit. When I opened the rabbit, out came a hat. And that's the poem model that I structure. And this little boy said, when I opened the door, out came Guatemala. When I opened Guatemala, out came my home. When I opened my home, out came my mom.
Wow. And
those were the first words that he said. It was in Spanish, but that he was able to share that.
I love that.
And I don't think that there was a dry eye in the classroom.
I can imagine. You know, we would love it if you would share one of your poems with us. Would you please?
I would love to. And in fact, this is what I'm going to do. Help me finish the sentence. I used to be the moon, but now I am the
stars.
I used to be rain, but now I am
the sun.
Beautiful. So do you see, so looking at that structure, this is my poem. It's called my midlife in the 21st century. I used to roller skate from Chinatown to Lincoln Center. Now I take a lift to the grocery store. I used to be afraid of vampires, so I slept with garlic and holy water. But now I fear police sirens, elections, and tap water. I used to break dance at weddings. Now I cry and eat cake. I used to bathe with Dove soap. Now I soak in lavender, eucalyptus, sea salts. I used to kiss the sky. Now I embrace Rock Creek Park. I used to be afraid of poetry. Now I know it like I was baptized in the Word. I used to feel, and now I feel even more.
Wow, that was so moving, Reggie. Thank you. And thanks
so
for
much.
being on Solutions. We're going to sneak in another short break. And when we come back, Ariana Ross is going to tell you how you can support this awesome organization. We'll be right back.
Story Tapestries is important to children who might otherwise not have the opportunity to see an actor or a storyteller.
Story Tapestries has given me some really unique opportunities to engage with schools and students, to engage people and connect them with art, to educate and enlighten.
Bridge people and connect people so we can further the mission.
It's really important for us to really analyze why we like what we like, why we do what we do. Because I don't feel that we are what we do. I feel that we are how we do.
There are so many kids that are written off, and Story Tapestries does its best to reach that kid, the one in the back, or that kid, the one in the wheelchair.
I learned that it helps a lot to vocalize a story to someone.
The impact that I hope to have is to give every child and every adult access to a brave, to a courageous, to a creative space where they can learn, where they can develop their own voice, where they can develop their story, and they can really find the tools they need to advocate for themselves and in some ways to become themselves. It gives you the opportunity to be the best person you can possibly be.
Welcome back. Ariana, as we close out the program, are there any annual events or events that happen all the time that people can come out, support you, and see the work you do?
So there are many different ways that people can support Story Tapestries by volunteering. So they can go to our website and they can actually put in a request to volunteer, read stories to kids. We have a lot of family nights throughout the year at various schools, libraries, community centers. We have adult events where people can come and speak at those events. We're always looking for working individuals to come and talk about their experience, their journey. And then every year in October in the fall, we have an annual event called Elevate Voices, Celebrate Community. And we bring our stakeholders together to celebrate the organization and our results and our impact. But what is important though is that event, that one that is in the fall, is not always as kid-friendly, because it's late in the evening or it's, for that. So throughout the year, we have key public events that you can find on our website, and anyone can attend, little to big. And we do also call those Elevate Voices, Celebrate Community, because each time we come together, we are celebrating our community.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being on Solutions. Thank you for the wonderful work you're doing. Right back at you. I'd like to thank both of my guests, Ariana Ross, founder and CEO, and Reggie Cabico, poet and teaching artist of Story Tapestries, for coming on the show and sharing solutions that help improve the lives of children and adults in our communities. If you'd like more information or want to support the work of Story Tapestries, then visit their website at storytapestries.org or call them at 301-916-6328. I'm Cheryl Hawkins. Thanks for watching, and see you next time for more Solutions.